Losing a loved one is already hard enough without having to deal with all of the extra stuff that comes along with it on your own. So today let's talk about what to do when a home is part of an estate sale, whether you've inherited property or you are helping a loved one downsize. So first of all, what is an estate sale? Well, an estate sale is basically the sale of a deceased person's belongings and oftentimes their home if they own one. Common situations would include things like inheritance, probate, maybe your loved one wants to downsize, maybe they're moving into a senior living facility. Whatever the reason is, there's a lot to each of these different things that you have to learn how to navigate. And along with all of those things, there's a lot of emotional and logistical challenges for families in these types of situations. So let's dive into what happens to a home when a loved one passes away. The first thing that usually happens is the probate process. So unless your loved one put their home into a trust, they're usually going to have to go through the probate process through the courts. So what is probate? Well, probate is basically the legal process for settling an estate after somebody passes away. It's going to check and see if there are any wills, and if there are wills from the loved one, then they're going to make sure that they're valid. Are all of the signatures there that are needed? Is everything kind of in line? And then they'll do their due diligence to make sure that, everything kind of checks out. Are all of the debts and the taxes paid for the person who passed away? And also any remaining assets, usually a home would be one of the main ones. The remaining assets are going to be distributed to the heirs. Another step that's going to happen is the title must be cleared and there must be clear ownership of the home established. And you may need to have an appraisal done on the property so that way you can get a proper value of the home. And then you might have to move forward with selling the home so that way that money that's made off the sale of the home can be distributed properly to the heirs. So there's a lot of timeline considerations that you have to keep in mind when looking at all of the legality parts of this. So probate is not a short process, unfortunately. If your loved one had a will and everything checks out and it looks good, it can speed up the process significantly. If they did not have a will, though, it can take 4 to 12 months for the probate process to actually play out. There's a lot of things involved. They have to look everything over. They have to decide, who actually owns the property. They have to assign an executor of all of the assets so that way they can distribute them properly to the heirs. There's a lot involved in this probate process. So that side of things, like I said, is not fast. It can take 4 to 12 months. If the house is going to be sold, it cannot be sold until the probate is finalized. So unless your loved one did put it into a trust or has a transfer on death deed, then it's going to have to go through this probate process. Like I said before, a simple will it's going to speed up the process, but it still has to be validated. So there is still probate involved. It's just not going to take as long as if there was no will in place. I would suggest that you start planning very early, way ahead of time. So how are you going to clean out the property? Are there any repairs that need to be made to the property before you would sell it? There's a lot of paperwork involved, with the lawyers, with your real estate agent, with all, this and that. You need to make sure that you start planning early with your family so that way you don't have any things that pop up and kind of derail you from your progress. Now, let's talk about your selling options with an estate situation. So your first selling option is the very common traditional sale. So you would reach out to a real estate agent like myself, and we would help guide you through the process of what you need to do to get the home ready to go on the market. So that would be things like prepping the home. If the clean out is something that needs to happen, we'll get you set up with somebody to do that. or you can do it yourself, whichever you prefer. It's a case-by-case basis. This is not a one-size-fits-all. It's going to be what's best for you and your family. We're going to list the home for you, and then we will facilitate all of the showings, the offers, the paperwork, things like that. Another option that sometimes works well in estate situations is seeking out a cash buyer for your home. Cash buyers are typically going to offer you less than you would get in a traditional sale. However, it is much faster. There's usually no appraisal involved, and you can usually sell the property as is, which means that you wouldn't have to do any repairs. You don't have to fix things up. So sometimes this is the better way for families, who are already dealing with so much, just to kind of get it off their plate and say, we're just going to take a cash offer. We don't really want to deal with, the stress of a traditional home sale. So that is one option. So another part of the selling process is not necessarily with the home, but with the contents that are inside of the home. So there's a lot of different ways that this can be done. It's really just dependent on what you and your family want and what's best for you. So you can go in and you can go through all of the stuff with your family on your own. You can pick what you want to keep, and then you can have a garage sale or something like that to get rid of the rest. A lot of times that's a lot of stress for families and they don't want to deal with that. So for example, if you partner with us at Burke Homes, we have relationships with a lot of different estate sale companies that can come in and do the clean out for you. So basically there's a menu of different options where you would pay a portion of the sales to the company. They'll come in and they'll clean out everything, and then they'll have some kind of auction, garage sale, some sort of estate sale to get rid of the remaining items. And then when they take their portion out, you and your family get to split the rest of it. So sometimes that's a good option. Just like I said, this is a very stressful situation already. And when you throw in like having to clean out, a loved one's home and all of that before you can sell the home, sometimes that makes it just kind of pile up the stress on top of you. And that's not always what's best. So you have a lot of different options, and we have those connections to get you in the right spot. So that way you don't have to deal with those things. There's going to be some key things that you and your family need to prepare that are going to help move this process along more smoothly. You're going to need the death certificate of your loved one. You're going to need any kind of documentation of a will or a trust that they may have left behind. You're going to want a list of heirs or anybody who would be entitled to parts of the estate. And then you're going to want to find things like the keys to the home, any kind of utility information that may be useful to potential buyers. Anything like that you can find that's going to help make this process move more smoothly is going to be a huge help along the way. You also, like we mentioned earlier, are going to want to create some kind of clean out plan with your family, whether that's going to be that you all are going to handle that on your own, or you're going to partner with an estate sale company to kind of make that process easier. Now, I know that is quite a bit of information and it may seem overwhelming, and just understand that we know that this is not an easy process for anybody, but we understand the process, and we've done this over and over and over again, helping clients through this. We can provide guidance to you and your family without all of the pressure. We can help you with all of the connections that you need for people like estate sale, clean out companies, legal professionals, appraisers. We can help find you buyers for the home. If you do decide that a cash offer is the way to go, we have investors that we work with that can help you with that as well. You don't have to figure this out by yourself. Bottom line is that we are here to help you every single step of the way. So if you're dealing with a property that's in probate or helping a loved one downsize, reach out to us. We can help you.